Hello Patricia, my name is Hans Rasmus Larsen. I am your great-great-grandfather. This is a short story of my life. My story starts where I was born in Britislav, Denmark on the 28th of May 1806. My parents are Lars Hansen and Maren Hansdatter. I was the fourth born to them of 13 children. They were married the 17th of June 1796. I grew up working on the large plantation at Biltorp where many families resided. I also learned the trade of weaver from my father. I left the Abiltorp farm and worked at various other farms in the area. I met and married Katrine Jensdatter the 22nd of May 1841 in Halsted, Denmark. I called her Trina. I was 35 and she was 27 years old at the time. Trina and I were living on the farm at Abiltorp on Lolland Island in southern Denmark near Germany. There our first son Christian was born on the 13th of April 1844. Our second son Lars was born the 16th of December in 1846. My father died 5 days later, on the 21st of December 1846 at the age of 74. I continued my trade as a weaver and farmer. Trina's parents were living with us at the time. We moved to Skolinge to work, about 7 miles away. Our son Christian became ill and died in the 21st of August of 1850 at the age of 6. We were heartbroken and confused, not knowing if we would ever see him again. Our sorrow was great. We buried him 4 days later. In 1853 we became acquainted with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Mormons as they were called. At first, we were very skeptical about this American religion. It was so different from our Lutheran church. It was different, but it all seemed to be so beautiful. The Mormon elders answered many questions that had gone unanswered for several years. After much soul searching, we made our decision and requested baptism of the elders. We had received the witness of the Spirit that this strange new religion was true. We decided then that we would sacrifice everything we had, if necessary, for the true gospel of Christ. Little did we realize then the sacrifices that we would be called on to make. Our baptisms were a turning point in our lives and our lifestyle. We became part of the Happy Danes family of believers. Our daughter Dorothea was born the 12th of May in 1852 in Skolinge. There was a real hatred for us, Mormons, by some Danish people, and we were greatly persecuted for our newfound faith. Ruffians disrupted our meetings, often causing property damage. We soon had a great desire to emigrate to Zion to be with the saints in Utah. We decided to go where we would be able to worship without persecution. This feeling was mutual with all the converts. We made plans to leave Denmark and go to America. On Monday the 26th of December 1853 we sailed with 200 fellow saints from Copenhagen. Many people gathered on the wharf to witness the departure of the Mormons. Many used the most wicked and blasphemous language, cursing and swearing at us because we were disgracing them by going to America. We sailed first to Kiel, Germany, then by rail to Blokstad. We then boarded a ship and traveled to Hull, England. We then traveled by rail to Liverpool. We were confused by the English language that we didn't understand. After a 2-week delay, we boarded the 3-masted Benjamin Adams sailing ship on the 22nd of January 1854. Passengers were examined by a doctor before boarding and 15 were not allowed to board. There were 384 saints on board the ship. The provisions were poor and our water supply gave out before the journey was ended. After several weeks of sailing, our little daughter Dorothea became very ill. There was nothing we could do for her. Trina and I were broken-hearted when our beloved Dorothea died on the 6th of March. In our grief we hoped one of the saints would see to her burial, as we couldn't bear it. No one volunteered to help us bury her because they feared getting the disease. Sadly, I tied some weights to her little 2-year-old body and dropped her into the ocean. How we wished we could have given her a proper burial. 7 others also died while we were at sea. We arrived at New Orleans the 22nd of March after 7 weeks on the ocean. We traveled up the Mississippi River to St. Louis on the L.M. Kennett steamboat. Much sickness prevailed aboard the boat and 14 more of our fellow saints died. We camped at Westport, Missouri, not far from the Missouri River. We organized into a company with Captain Hans Peter Olsen. We left on Thursday the 15th of June 1854 with about 550 saints. The large company consisted of 69 wagons. Each wagon was pulled by 4 oxen. Working with the big oxen was a new experience for me. Cholera was ever present with us. Many of our friends died of the dreaded disease. We were compelled to bury them without coffins along the way. The Spirit of the Lord was strong among us and we tried to obey our leaders. Many of the saints from our company were Danish and decided to settle together in Fort Ephraim in Sanpete County. We were homeless during the first winter of 1854. There was much hunger and cold among us. There were also Indian hostilities. I was 54 years old at that time and Catherine was 47. Lars was 13 years old when he changed his name to Louis. As we were in America, we both added Rasmus as our middle name after my brother who had died in Denmark. I settled into farming on my own acreage. I appreciated my farm training in Denmark. In 1865 Louis, our only living child, left to fight in the Black Hawk War. In the spring of 1866, he went to Missouri to help bring an emigrant company to Utah. Louis married Elsie Marie Pedersen on the 30th of November 1866. After 1 year of marriage they presented us with our first grandchild, Louis Christian Larsen. At this time, we were members of the Ephraim Ward. The ward helped us develop spiritually and we enjoyed the social life with other members. The ward held Danish meeting for us and other Danish members occasionally. My beloved Trina died on the 26th of November 1879, while we lived at Ephraim. Her death was a sad experience for me as she had been my loving companion for some 38 years. We sadly buried her in the little cemetery north of town. I didn't know how I could carry on without her. After her death I moved with Louis and Elsie to Fairview, some 30 miles north. I was getting older when we moved to Fairview. I couldn't do as much as I once did. Louis and Elsie built a 1-room cabin behind their own home. I was very comfortable there and enjoyed being near my grandchildren. The grandchildren loved to look at my Danish Bible, which I spent much of my time reading. I tried to teach them a few Danish words. My eyesight was poor. I had to hold my Bible up close to read it. Brigham Young announced the building of a temple in Mount I on the 25th of June 1875. I looked forward to its completion so we could go there and receive our promised endowments, be sealed to Catherine and do work for my kindred dead. I received an assignment in my priesthood meeting, to work on the temple. I worked on it, in Mount I, 2 weeks at a time. I walked the 30 miles in 10 hours. I took my wheelbarrow, provisions and blankets. I looked forward to its completion. The temple was under construction for 11 years. It was completed in 1888, 4 years after my death. I died on the 27th of February 1884, in the night, of a heart attack at the age of 77. I am buried in the Fairview Cemetery next to Louis's family. Thank you, my dear Patricia, for listening.